Yeah, our cousin Thomas committed suicide right by this house. This is the Jacobs house.
This big one on the left?
Yes. And on December 4th, 1941, Thomas Kersten left his home, which is right here on the right, this gray or blue, whatever color that house that is.
That's great.
That's where Uncle John Kersten and his wife Martha lived. And John obviously had been contemplating suicide for a while. He took a sawed-off shotgun that he had prepared for the act and placed it under his chin. Well, first of all, he left a note. He quoted from Shakespeare, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, and then more of that saying from, I think, The Merchant of Venice, one of the Shakespearean plays. And there had been a light snowfall, and maybe like an inch. And his steps came out of the house, down the sidewalk, over there, about almost in the front of this big Jacobs house, just a little bit beyond it.
It was by the, I think, that first big tree.
And he put the gun under his chin and pulled the trigger. Literally blew his brains out. I was on my way to school on that cool December morning, walking down Sturgeon Eddy. And as I came around the bend down here, I saw a policeman standing on the sidewalk. Albert Taylor running the other direction. And he made some comment about somebody who's dead up there. Well, I continued walking, and there was my cousin in a pool of blood. His head was covered, so I didn't know who it was. And the policeman standing there, but nobody else. And there I stood on my way to junior high school, witnessing the body of my cousin who had committed suicide. Exciting day. This is where Emma Pestine lived.
Now, didn't Clyde come along also, or was it you?
No, he
That
didn't.
heard Uncle John came at the time, and his cry was, "My God, my son, my son, my son."
Yeah, well, that was after.
After you saw
Yeah.
it,
So he was
That was Emma Pestine's there.
okay. So he was a cousin by your father's brother,
Right.
son?
John Kersten. Now there's the frog pond down there. While we're here, we'll just cruise around the corner here, and we'll stop at the toboggan slide and take a couple of steps down it.
So one I remember must have been somewhere around here where I remember Dad telling the story several times of you, Uncle Ed, knocking yourself out, was it?
Yeah, this is the place.
Okay.
yeah. I gave his grandsons my principal person observation on that.
Okay, we'll get out here and take a little look down there.
Okay. But the
Back
pond
then-
itself was here?
The pond was here. This is where we look forward to skating on Thanksgiving.
That's right.
Very often we have it hard enough freeze. This would freeze over. We'd be down there skating.
I
Start
remember
the season.
building a fire on the ice down
Oh
there
yeah,
too.
there's plenty of brush to burn. Big fire. There you can see down at the bottom.
This is the original manuscript.
So this looks like kids still use it.
Oh, they do, yeah. I see people walking up this, and kids on their bicycles walking down this thing. So,
But the big tree you hit's gone.
that tree is gone. It's gone.
So
Yeah.
So it was down this slide where you ran into a tree,
Yeah.
knocked yourself out, and you said you had to drag Uncle Ed back?
Yeah. Well, most of the people that were using this were mostly right at the top. And here's little brother. He picks up the sled, and I saw him run. And I remember, "Don't, Ed, don't," because it was packed. It was slippery. He didn't stop. Belly slam, down he went. This way, that way. The big tree, about 2/3 of the way down. I hit that thing and just went tumbling off the side. So big fellas were there. In a hurry, carried him up, limp as a rag doll, and put him on my sled and pulled him home. Took him to the house, never called the doctor, didn't take him to the hospital. He lay unconscious until quite late that evening
Oh.
before he started to come to. memorable.
If only I had worn my helmet.
Could have broke his neck or not awakened. Now, Dad was gone, so you probably were about,
I'm probably like 9 years old.
I was going to say 8 or 9.
Yeah.
But we used to dig worms down here when it got dry.
Mhm.
There's always clay and moist. And next to the frog pond, we could usually find worms for our important fishing.
I often wondered about some of that clay because we'd get down to a real blue clay. Like, I really think there should be mining of aluminum here. There's a rich vein of whatever kind of clay it is that from which they extract aluminum.
Remember the marbles we made from that?
Yeah,
Baked them in Mother's oven?
yeah. One good shot and it would disintegrate.
I have a question. We're talking about the winter. Where was that story, Dad? You've told a lot about the sort of a big, maybe bully kind of character who was skating closer and closer to the edge.
Right.
That was it.
I'll show you.
Okay.
The gully, not just a little distance from where we lived.
You called it rubber ice?
Yeah, it was getting soft, and when he was a big, heavy fellow, and the ice would just, where he would go, it would just go down, and the crack behind his skates would look like a herringbone.
We call it flex ice today.
But anyway, there was pieces of ice frozen on top of the surface, and he tripped on one of those, and he fell, and his whole full body broke right through that soft ice. And he came up blubbering and angry. He said, "It got my cigarettes wet."
Great story. It happened. This little structure here, this gazebo, which we called the pavilion back when we were kids, was quite a place. We really enjoyed coming down here, climbing on the understructure there, under the roof, and carving our initials in there. Back about 15 years ago, not that long, maybe 12 years ago, we were visiting, and my grandson Nathan wanted to find his grandpa's initials in there, which he did. He found them.
Really?
Yeah.
It was there.
And now countless hours along that riverbank down there. We didn't start this at 7:25 like I planned to do.
And then that bit of land that you're seeing, just short distance here, that's an island.
Mm-hmm.
There's a channel used to run here, but we used to get out there and play.
We called that Finger Island because we thought there were 5 points to it, 5 little inlets.
So how did you get out there?
I never got out there without a boat. I don't know how my brother got there.
Well, during the winter we had
Winter time,
we
yeah.
had access.
Okay.
But on the outside of that island is where the channel runs, and that's deep, and it runs faster than it runs through this side.
Mm-hmm.
And there's two life-saving expeditions I was involved there. One was the ice was frozen out just maybe 20, 30 feet from the shore, and one of the fellows was acting smart and going as close to the edge as he could with the skates. They got too close, edge broke off, and he went in. He got back to the ice, but he couldn't get on.
Mm-hmm.
And none of us had the courage to go out there and let him pull us in. So we came up with a bright idea of taking a piece of wood, which we found, put it in his brother's hand, had him lay on the ice, and then took him by the legs, and we formed a chain. Pushed him out. We were holding on to each other, hip to hip, and the guy in front had his legs like a wheelbarrow, and pushed him out so his brother could reach the stick, and we pulled him in.
Mm-hmm.
Another time, it was cold, very, very cold. I was walking side by side with Don Swanson, pulling our sleds, and there's what they call an air hole. There's just a shell of ice just under the snow, but no ice underneath it, just open hole.
Mm-hmm.
And we couldn't see it because of the snow. He stepped on top of that thing, and just like that, went right in. Fortunately, the hole wasn't much bigger than his body, and it stopped. His elbows caught, but he couldn't get out.
Oh.
I pulled him out. We got to the top of the hill, and his clothes were freezing, so he couldn't walk anymore.
Was that the far side of that island too?
No, that's a point of land.
Okay,
Yeah,
but I mean where the air hole was.
Yeah, is that same little finger
over back there.
back here.
Yep.
Anyway, I had to pull him home. He couldn't. He iced up. So if you stop here, and I want to show Dan where 725. This is our home street. Straight down. Was that about 2 blocks? Ed?
The house is about 2 blocks down?
Without telling Mother, we're about 2 blocks down the old home.
Okay.
No, this is Ross Avenue. Broadway's over there, 1 block. Over.
Broadway's over that way?
Yeah, the next street over there is Broadway.
You sure?
Yeah, this is Ross Avenue.
Okay, you pass.
Now, there weren't that many houses here when you were kids,
No.
right?
No, this little road here extended down all the way to the asylum. And Ross Avenue was here, but just a gravel road. And then they call it Lakeview then, there's a little street over there. But this is all open fields from here all the way up to where our house was.
Mm-hmm.
And from our house, you can look down and see the institution down here. You can see the airport. And we roamed those fields. Back in those days, the help, I should say, the inmates, as we call them then, would make hay out here. They'd come with their horse and with their mower and then with their rakes, and they'd manually rake it up, and or maybe they had a side rake. I don't remember that though, but I remember the old guys out there raking and then stacking it small stacks, and then with a pitchfork putting it on the wagon, and the wagon would pull it off to the cow barn over here at the farm. And then in the spring, that dry grass would burn real nicely. I'll never forget the time somebody set it afire. This whole big field over here just burning beautifully. And the fire department came out, and they pulled up right next to our house, and the fireman said, "Who started this fire?" And some little voice from the crowd said, "Eddie Kersten." Which he didn't do. I swear to this day, I didn't do it.
So was the house in danger at all?
Not really, no.
Well, they used to come and burn it too, controlled burning. But anyway, Broadway
Yeah.
the bank is not unlike this. You can see it right there,
Over
just
there.
that short distance.
Mhm.
That's where your dad didn't tell your grandmother. They dug worms, put the fishing tackle together, and came down to do some fishing. Mother was wondering where I'd gone, and she had an idea probably went fishing. So it wasn't too long that I was enjoying my expedition that I heard Mother call. Wasn't very old.
So this is when you were young enough that you'd worry about.
And Mother would have worried.
Mother would have worried about an
Oh, yeah.
independent expedition.
Yeah, for sure. But there's a path that we wore well. Off the end of Broadway, we go that way, and all along here.
Down by the water?
Down by the water. Probably still there.
I hope so. I haven't been down there for a number of years, but I hope some kids are still walking this trail. Now, actually, the trail started down there by that pavilion,
Yeah.
that was, as we called it. And every significant geographical notable feature along there had a name. At the pavilion, that was Zerbel's Point. And then across a little bay, a little channel there, Finger Island. And then down by the, what do you call it, the tubs.
That was where the pine trees started, right here.
Yeah. And then there's
The tubs is somebody's house or just an area?
just an area down here.
Okay.
I think we found a wash tub there.
Okay.
Yeah, when we were kids, somebody put a wash tub in the water, bottom up, and stood out to fish. Get out a
Okay.
bit farther.
Yeah. And then further down, there was a little point out into the water. That was the first point. And then another one further down was the second point, and that became Johnson's Park, way out there where you can see that boat or whatever it is out in the water. And there was one of the inmates who maintained a little area there that we called Johnson's Park. His name was Oscar Johnson. And then just beyond that was a place called the Milkers. And that's where the county home farm crew would take the boat across the river in the summertime to the summer pasture across the river, and they'd do the milking morning and evening. I think it was a 16-place vessel, and they'd bring the big milk cans back and all that. So, and then in the spring and fall, when there's no more pasture land, they would bring them back to the barns. Across the bridge over there where you can see the cars go, we call that Snake Bridge. They'd walk the herd of cattle all the way through town, down Grand Avenue and Sturgeon Eddy Road, right back to the barn over here. Big ceremony twice a year.
Oh, ceremony. I was wondering why they were doing the loop.
And that was a herd of very excellent breed of Guernseys.
So I mean, this was it was like a parade.
That's what it amounted to. It was a traffic stopper for sure. I don't know if they had a cleanup crew coming out behind or not like at the Rose Parade, but anyhow, it was a memorable event.
But as far as we knew where all the good fishing holes were along here, and we would catch, because as we got used to fly fishing, we would no waders. We would just walk in up to where we could fish beyond the weed edge, and I remember we used to use cane poles.
Yeah.
The old spoon hook, just off the edge of the grass at Northern Pike. One day I was down here all by myself, and this fellow out there fishing. 1, 2.
This is you pulling
3. I think I had the 4th Northern Pike, and this fella pulled anchor, came, and he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I've been fishing all day, haven't caught a thing."
So did you tell him your secret?
You can see it. I told him. But we used to fly fish, crappies, largemouth bass, perch. Once in a while a dogfish.
I was just going to say a dogfish. I caught a dogfish one time, a real lunker. I think it was about 24 inches long. It was almost more than I could handle. But we didn't eat dogfish.
No.
They made good fertilizer in the garden.
Mm-hmm.
I was walking down Ross Avenue here with this big dogfish, and somebody drove alongside. "Hey, can I buy that fish from you?" I was honest with the man. I said, "You can't eat this fish. We just take it home and put it in the garden for fertilizer." Had I only known, I could have had probably a nickel or a dime. It's just hard to come by those days.
Good money. And off that point, Walleye Pike.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That distant point.
A distant point, because it had a gravel bank and a deep hole just off the point where they seemed to congregate. Lots of panfish.
Oh yeah.
And just to pin down that spot where the, because I remember that bully story breaking through the ice so well. That was, where was that?
Back by John Marshall School.
Oh, we haven't gotten there
We'll
yet.
go there.
We'll
Okay.
drive around.